Welcome back to the Wi-Fi Forum. I'm Sean Kinney, and it's a pleasure to introduce Mr. Nitin Duggal, Chief Operating Officer with Adentro. He's going to share a case study with some real-world benchmarking data. So, Nitin, thank you for joining the forum, and I'll hand things over to you.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm assuming everyone's from different time zones. Hope you guys are doing well. Yeah, I'm going to talk about Adentro and what we're doing in the Wi-Fi ecosystem space, but our kind of primary goal is to make for a more connected future when it comes to the consumer experiences. We're trying to simplify connectivity and empower organizations to be able to provide for and deliver seamless consumer experiences across both cellular and Wi-Fi networks by making sure that we are creating value for each of the different constituents in the ecosystem. And I'll highlight case studies basically kind of across the various spectrums given the audience today, so you can see what we're doing for the various audiences that are leveraging our solutions, primarily in the Western Hemisphere, US being one of our core markets, and then we also in basically kind of Canada as well as Western Europe and Latin America. Um, for the enterprise and commercial venues, they are leveraging us primarily to deliver new consumer experiences by converting Wi-Fi, which basically has become almost a de facto standard in the Western Hemisphere, from an operating expense to an asset. So all across hospitality, entertainment, retail, and shopping destinations, you're starting to see guest Wi-Fi become a true source of value creation for the enterprise as well as these kind of commercial venues, where in the past, the commercial venues were primarily trying to understand their customers through loyalty programs and loyalty reward programs, with kind of far in between success, because getting individuals to sign up for loyalty rewards and loyalty programs wasn't the easiest of things to do. But with guest Wi-Fi, what they're able to do now is basically understand their customers better in their physical locations and commercial venues by one offering kind of a value exchange by giving guest Wi-Fi for free, in return for which they're basically collecting customer data and consumer profiles that are obviously giving them consent in terms of visiting their locations and spending time in their locations. That's allowing these physical venues to, one, basically kind of build their customer database and their CRM, which they weren't able to do in the past, or were limited in terms of being able to do only in the online world, but not in the offline world. But once they built the customer database, they can also understand what's happening in their physical locations in terms of how often are these customers coming back to their locations? Are they first-time customers? Are they infrequent customers? Or are they loyalty members who have signed up for loyalty rewards, and their behaviors in their physical locations, if you will, in terms of time spent and other attributes that are important to these commercial venues. In the entertainment side and in the kind of stadium side, a lot of them is collecting data to understand their fans better so they can engage those fans. But across the spectrum, in the commercial use case, what we are seeing is this data is very valuable, not only from an analytics and insights perspective, but to be able to engage these customers so that they can basically kind of drive additional value in terms of delivering unique and personalized consumer experiences to them, but more importantly, building loyalty and affinities to their brands, which allows them to bring these customers back to their locations more frequently. As well as, what we're starting to see is, as the physical world gets more and more digitized, with digital screens and digital displays showing up everywhere in the physical world, you're starting to see even the ability to make sure that those experiences on these digital screens are getting more tailored and personalized and immersive, in terms of making sure these physical venues are basically able to compete with the online world in terms of offering these kind of immersive experiences that brings customers back to these locations and delivers unique experiences that makes the customer basically kind of obviously build loyalty and affinity with those brands. So we're seeing these use cases emerge across the kind of commercial space. A case study here is Gelson's, which is a supermarket chain across the United States that deployed Adentro to collect kind of customer data of what's happening inside their supermarkets by offering free guest Wi-Fi. And then, given that this is a functional category, what Gelson started to realize is obviously there's a section of this population that's loyal to Gelson's that's coming back to the supermarket on a regular frequency to shop, but there's a large percentage of Gelson's customers that are infrequent customers or new customers or even kind of your kind of lapsed customers. To be able to engage those customers, now Gelson's has a lot of rich insights about who's coming into their stores, what they're doing inside their stores, which section they're going into. So they were able to tailor unique experiences for each of these segments of the marketplace and engage these shoppers not only inside their store, but also leverage this data to be able to kind of reach them in digital channels, whether it be social media, Instagram, TikTok, to be able to engage them in promotions, weekly circulars, what's happening at their supermarkets. So those customers would then basically gonna use those avenues to return back. That drove basically kind of a lift in kind of shopping behaviors at these supermarkets, where they saw a 10% increase in kind of visit behavior from these shoppers coming back on a more frequent basis based on those weekly circulars that were circulating in these digital channels. That drove obviously revenue growth for Gelson's when it came to engaging customers using Wi-Fi and allowing for customers to kind of be able to leverage Wi-Fi in their stores for free in exchange for which they were able to collect this data. So this is one of the kind of case studies in the supermarket space, but we are seeing this case study not only be used by supermarkets and uh, food and beverage type locations like ABI, which is one of the largest craft brewery across the United States, also uses Adentro to engage customers in similar ways. But we are seeing similar kind of trends on the retail side and shopping malls and shopping destinations on how to bring customers back into their physical locations to spend more time there and engage with them in those locations and then nudge them into basically kind of obviously uh, uh, getting access to things that matter to them in these locations as part of what we're seeing in the enterprise and the commercial venue space when it comes to deployments. Simon Malls that I just spoke about again is another use case where or a deployment where they're one of the largest REITs. They have shopping mall destinations all across the United States and the globe. They've deployed us all across the United States, which is 156 different shopping mall destinations, because in the past they were able to kind of create these digital screens to engage customers when they visit the mall, but they had no idea on who was basically kind of engaging with these screens or being able to kind of even view these screens. But with guest Wi-Fi now deployed across all their various zones in the Simon malls, they're not only able to now basically kind of determine who's basically kind of engaging with these screens, walking by these screens and stuff like that, but they're also able to leverage that Wi-Fi data to engage these customers not only inside the store again, but also in digital channels to bring them back, which is allowing them to monetize their foot traffic in these locations with their retail partners and building out a retail media network that has basically kind of obviously mimicked what we've seen Amazon do in the online world with their partners, where they're able to basically insert experiences in the user flow when you visit Amazon.com to what Walmart and Target have done with their physical locations and online channels to now what Simon Malls is starting to do to obviously engage their customers and make sure that the customers have these unique experiences tailored to the customers' affinities based on this data that obviously drives more value both to Simon Malls as well as our retail tenant partners in these stores. So these are kind of examples of what we are seeing in the commercial world. And then here's another basic kind of instance of how Simon Malls is using that guest Wi-Fi not only to learn about their customers and their locations, but also engage their customers through the Wi-Fi experience where they're able to get their retail tenant partners to use kind of weekly nudges to bring customers into their retail stores inside the Simon malls when they're basically kind of creating experiences that are tailored to the consumer's experience when they're visiting these very locations, if you will. Moving on, this is just kind of a quick overview of where Simon Malls has been able to kind of take the kind of unique kind of connectivity experiences inside the stores from just being an in-store retail media network to now being able to kind of not only do what they were doing inside the malls with digital screens that were pretty kind of static or pretty kind of generic to now being able to personalize and tailorize those screens and make those screens more immersive with this rich data based on knowing what foot traffic patterns look like, who typically basically kind of visits what zone and what their interests may lie. And that allows them to now use that rich profile in activating these high intent shoppers in the offsite world as well, where they're engaging with them now in channels like social, mobile, email to bring them back into those locations. So that's one set of deployments we've seen, especially with Wi-Fi and our ability to kind of drive these unique experiences, connecting cellular customers to Wi-Fi and making sure that they can get these rich experience. Another set of best case deployments we're seeing are with mobile network providers and MVNOs. AT&T is one of our largest basic kind of mobile network provider in the US that's leveraging Adentro's kind of network of hotspots. We have tens of thousands of hotspots in the United States to offload the cell subscribers of theirs onto the hotspots so that they can basically, one, get much higher bandwidth and richer experiences and improved user experiences in dense locations. But more importantly, it's also serving the needs of AT&T in this case, which is obviously able to kind of improve their operational drive operational efficiency with lower costs, given that it's cheaper to serve customers on Wi-Fi in these hotspot locations than serve them on those 5G networks and stuff like that. So this is another set of use cases we are seeing emerge, starting with AT&T, which is one of the largest telcos in the United States, with other MVNOs that are starting to offload their cell subscribers onto our hotspots, given our network in the United States that provides for a much richer experience and a higher bandwidth when consumers are offloaded onto a network. Again, creating a win-win scenario from an offload perspective, both for the network provider as well as the consumers. And a quick example of this is basically I talked about is AT&T, but Google's starting to do this, Samsung's starting to do this with their devices based on the open roaming protocol, which was put out by the Wireless Broadband Alliance, where now we are able to offer seamless interoperability between cell subscribers or cell service as well as Wi-Fi, where the user doesn't basically get dropped. He automatically roams onto the network on a secure connection and gets an enhanced user experience in these dense locations when the device comes in close proximity to any one of our tens of thousands of hotspots across the United States. The final kind of the set of deployments we are starting to see is with CSPs and communication service providers. And their primary kind of goal over here is to differentiate their kind of offerings, especially the wired and wireless line offerings that they basically kind of sell through to small businesses and enterprises, where their typical USP has been around connectivity and bandwidth in terms of what they've been basically kind of offering in their business connectivity offerings to their various customers, whether it be small business or enterprise. But with Adentro, basically now they're able to add a much higher value set of products and SKUs onto their connectivity offerings and business connectivity offerings for small business and enterprises. So they're no longer having to compete on table stakes that basically kind of have become table stakes across all the CSPs, such as kind of connectivity, bandwidth, and speed, to now basically kind of offering growth-oriented products, which allows for these small business and enterprises, one, not only kind of subscribe to the business connectivity offerings by, in this case, Verizon Business, which is using Adentro as an add-on SKU onto their wired and wireless offerings, to Cisco Meraki access points that are also starting to basically kind of price Adentro offerings to their hardware clients, where it's become a differentiation as well as a moat for each one of these CSPs to use that to, one, drive higher annual contract values and average order values with small business enterprises, but more importantly, allows them to now differentiate themselves because these SKUs, which are tied to customer data intelligence, marketing automation around event-triggered emails, as well as marketing campaigns, is the driver of differentiation for small businesses because they can leverage their guest Wi-Fi as an asset instead of an operating expense, from which they are able to derive a lot more value than they were prior to basically kind of Adentro. And this is another set of use cases that we're starting to see start to drive a lot of value for our CSPs in terms of the channel that we work with extensively to get business basically kind of commercial venues to start to adopt this so that one, it basically kind of allows them to drive a much better engagement with their consumers, but also creates a much better consumer experience where they can automatically basically kind of connect to the Wi-Fi, get richer experiences, get higher bandwidth in these locations, in return for which they are basically willing to kind of get more tailored content from these businesses in return for their loyalty and their affinity to those brands. So with that said, I'm going to basically kind of pause, given that I've obviously kind of gone through a number of set of case deployments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, Nitin, I believe we are at time for the session, but we can follow up on any questions. I do want to thank you for sharing the work that you're doing with Adentro. You really drove home the point that investments in Wi-Fi have a straight line to enhanced customer experience through personalization and can directly influence and improve business outcomes. So thank you again for joining the forum. And for the folks at home, join us back here in 4 minutes for another round of case study presentations. Thank you again, Nitin.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate the time.